It is the 6th of March 2022. Welcome to GGV FM Kingdom News. My name is Emmanuel Odeya. Church leaders from different denominations continued praying for the KCPE and KCSE candidates. In Great Gospel Visioners International Church headquarters in Meru, for example, Bishop Dr. Patrick Kariuki took time during the Sunday sermon to make special prayers for this year's candidates. Last week, different schools held prayers to give special thanks to God before starting the national exams. Kenya Certificate of Primary Education (KCPE) candidates had their rehearsals last Friday, and they are expected to start their exams from Monday to Wednesday this week. Candidates sitting for Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education (KCSE) started practicals last Monday, whereas the main examination will run from March 14th and end on 1st of April 2022. In other news, church leaders in Meru County have launched a peace campaign as the country heads to the general election. Speaking during the prayer breakfast held at Sitam Church here in Meru, the clergymen urged politicians to preach peace. The political leaders who attended the event promised to keep peace and cohesion during campaigns. The event was attended by several politicians, including the Deputy Governor of Meru County, Titus Nduchu, Meru Senator Mithika Linturi, and the Imenti North Member of Parliament Rahim Dawood. During the speeches, church leaders were forced to intervene several times to try and stop politicians from turning the meeting into a political forum. Meru Senator Mithika Linturi was one of the leaders who were forced to stop addressing after he started accusing ODM leader Raila Odinga.
And I'm one of the people that was saying, give Raila Odinga whatever he wants, and then we can have peace in Nairobi because my businesses were closed. So let us give him and then we proceed.
Thank you very much, Senator. As I mentioned a little earlier on, that as a church, we try to minister to people from different political parties without creating any sense of animosity. In a function like this, which is in our church, we try to maintain that attitude, that everything else comes, whether you are UDA, whether you are ODM, whether you are Jubilee, whether you are welcome here. And you need to feel comfortable here that no one is alienating you and no one is actually saying some things that are negative that would ostracize anyone.
I'm sorry. These things at times can be very emotional, and I'm sorry and I apologize profusely to the church. Yeah, but please understand me. I am sorry. I am really sorry, and Bishop, if I've gone beyond.
This is Kingdom News on GGV Radio. Keep listening.
The National Council of Churches of Kenya, NCCK, has called the National Assembly to amend sections of Children Bill that make responsible parenting impossible. Through a memorandum presented to the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare, the NCCK pointed out provisions that will stop parents disciplining their children or providing them with religious guidance. The NCCK Secretary General, Reverend Canon Chris Kinyanjui, noted that the provisions on religious guidance in the bill will allow children to overrun parental guidance, thereby threaten to upset family cohesion. In addition, Canon Kinyanjui said the NCCK is opposed to the provision on reproductive health services and information to children in contravention of Article 11 of the Kenyan Constitution. Canon Kinyanjui said scientific evidence shows that long-term use of family planning methods has a negative effect on the reproductive health of humans and will be devastating on children. Canon Kinyanjui said parents and medical workers would therefore be jailed for their actions meant to protect the health of children. According to the memorandum, the character of a nation is shaped by the character of its children, who are formed in the family and society setting, adding that the law should therefore support parenting and not make it difficult.
This is Kingdom News on GGV Radio. Keep listening.
In other news, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has responded to a letter written by the atheists in Kenya society asking him to abolish prayer days in schools. While commissioning the construction of CBC classrooms in Kwale and Mombasa counties, Magoha said he is a believer and that prayers should be encouraged even before exams if possible. He, however, clarified that he is strongly opposed to prayers from outside school.
Atheists are telling me that I should stop prayers in schools. They should go straight to hell. I am a believer and we must encourage children to pray even before exams if they can. We must pray. The kind of praying that we have stopped is prayers coming from outside, because in those prayers coming from outside, they also carry other things to come and confuse our children.
Earlier this week, the atheists in Kenya wrote to Magoha asking him to ban prayers in schools. The society stated that it had received several complaints from students in Kenyan schools who had been forced to attend church services on Sundays. The atheists argued that schools are meant for all children regardless of their religious beliefs, and it is the duty of churches and mosques to instill beliefs, not schools. They also asked parents to weigh in the issue since it is their children who are most affected. Still in schools, the Ministry of Education has warned school administrations against violation of learners' religious rights. State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education Principal Secretary Julius Juan pointed out that religious beliefs is slowly becoming an obstacle when it comes to fair access of education, as it's now being used as a tool for discrimination. In a letter sent to all county directors of education, Juan stated that keeping learners away from school based on their religious stand is contravention of the Constitution as stipulated in Chapter 4 of the Kenyan Constitution. He stated that the ministry will closely monitor how all administrations across all the counties to avoid the infringement of learners' freedom to belong to any religious background. The PS noted that the infringement of religious rights destroy the fabric of unity in the country, with the learners most times being on the losing end. Juan directed school administrators not to prohibit learners from wearing religious attire like hijabs or turbans, force students to take religious subjects like Christian Religious Education CRE or Islamic Religious Education RE, as well as denying learners an opportunity to observe religious rites. Further, school heads have been told to ensure they create a worship room and spaces and desist from forcing learners to participate in religious rites contrary to their beliefs. There has been a row in schools on whether Muslim students are allowed to wear hijabs, religious attire, as well as white trousers in schools, especially in Christian-based sponsored schools. The issue raised debates and the matter was taken to court. In 2016, the Court of Appeal made a judgment allowing Muslim students to wear hijab in non-Muslim schools and directed government to frame the guidelines. In 2019, the Supreme Court overturned the Court of Appeal ruling that allowed Muslim students to wear hijab in non-Muslim schools. In a case filed by the Methodist Church of Kenya, the Apex Court ruled that every school had the right to determine its own dress code. Up to date, it remains unclear on whether the circular by the Ministry of Education will be implemented, especially in learning institutions sponsored by the religious institutions who oppose divergent religious beliefs.
This is Kingdom News on GGV Radio. Keep listening.
In the international news, evangelical Ukrainian churches in the home of the largest Ukrainian population in the United States wept and prayed on Sunday. Having escaped persecution in the Soviet Union, they already have testimonies of God's faithfulness. On Sunday, the Ukrainian evangelicals in New York City gathered in their churches and wept, vented and sang, feeling the threat to their loved ones and their home alongside people around the world. Ukrainian in America called their praise songs weapons of war. Outside the churches, fellow New Yorkers continued protests against the Russian invasion, with some worshippers joining after their services. New York City has the largest Ukrainian population in the United States, a community of about 150,000 historically concentrated in the East Village of Manhattan and Brighton Beach in Brooklyn. Thousands had come to the United States as religious refugees, most of them baptized or Pentecostal, under a special asylum for those fleeing the Soviet religious persecution. That story brings us to the end of our Kingdom News Bulletin tonight. I wish to leave you with the scripture from the book of Titus, chapter number 2, verses 7. Yourself must be an example to them by doing good works of every kind. Let everything you do reflect the integrity and seriousness of your teaching. GGVFM, lighting your world. My name is Emmanuel Odeya. Have a good night.